Hi.
We are back again.
This may or may not be filmed back to back, but you'll never know.
It's a hard day of work.
Okay, last time we talked about kind of like what Tech Week brought us and how we are fully solidifying everything that we have been doing in the past few weeks. We also talked about the care aspect of the menu, and we kind of spoiled you with the game aspect, which is something that I know you're dying to get into. So, yeah.
Yeah, so we felt like in the last podcast, it was mainly describing, as an audience member, what are you going to see in the space? What is the space going to be like? How is it going to function? So now we're going to talk about us for a little bit. So we're going to get into what we have learned through Tech Week, the changes that we're going to be making, feedback that we got from our fantastic tutor, Rachel. Hello. So we're going to be getting into that now is, what's the behind the scenes? What are we doing today and in the next few days leading up to the show? Would you like to take it away?
Also games, because I'm so excited. It's one of my favourite parts.
Okay. Would you like to take it away with a bit of, I suppose, tech yesterday, kind of how that went. It was fantastic. Thank you to all the technicians. You were super helpful.
So much.
Thank you.
And
we're probably not watching this anyway, but thank you to the technicians. Thank you, technicians.
Yeah, absolutely. And with such a tech-reliant piece, we were absolutely just like... We were just like, please make this work. Please make this work. I know that this is just hard to make it work.
And it's, of course, we're working with, what's available to us. So there are, I guess getting right into it, this is one of the things that came up yesterday in our tech rehearsal, and also later when Rachel came to visit and suggestions. There are definitely things that we would love to do in this piece that we want, effects that we imagined we could have that in the end we cannot, and that's just the way that's showbiz, baby. So there are definitely things that we have to work around where, for example, during the ad breaks, our vision, I even wrote it into the script, is like, spotlights come, viv and liv, step into the spotlights. It's meant to be another play on what is it like to be in the spotlight. The juxtaposition is that in these, Viv was talking about how these are private moments in the previous podcast, if you missed that. Viv was talking about how these 3 ad breaks for us are private moments, but simultaneously, they're being, while our backs are turned to the audience, there's a live feed camera that is projecting our faces and everything we're saying and doing to the front of the room for the audience to see. So it's injecting a bit of voice. It's a little bit of Hitchcock, a Rear Window, a view into a private moment, which you'll see us playing in those moments of, is it private, is it not? But the idea was always that another way we would play with the privacy and the voyeurism is having us directly in the spotlights. So it's like, is it really truly private? What is that? We're standing in spotlights and playing with the idea of our whole piece of being in the spotlight. That ended up not being possible to have spotlights that just drop right down on us. I know it's very sad. We wanted a similar effect for audience members and audience seats as well. But it just ended up not being possible. So we're working with what we have. We're still trying to create that effect as best as we can. And I think that's a big theme for Tech Week is, you really just have to work with what you've got, make the changes that you can, but we've got a structure for a really good show here. Exactly. So we're just trying to figure out, if we can't get the exact effect we want, what is something we can do to create something similar with what we have?
Going off of kind of like what else happened, I feel like the majority of our time yesterday with teching literally went to the 4 screens that we have in
4 hours were dedicated to getting the screens to work.
Per screen. So we do have, similarly to a sports bar, or in England you get pubs in the way that you get actual...
Question from an American, although I guess you're a Finn,
I'm
so
not
I don't
English.
But I guess
I can try to answer.
As an American creating a piece about a sports bar, it was like, yes, sports bars have TVs covering, just in case y'all out there don't understand the bit. So what we're playing with is the idea of an American sports bar, which we've definitely described this before, but just to go back. I
think it's like this podcast 3 or podcast 2,
yeah,
so please go on.
This was like the idea from early on, is that there are TV screens all around a sports bar playing interviews with athletes, highlights, games, like different ones all around. So we wanted to create that feeling of having TVs around, and it really feels like you are surrounded by, like sports media. So we're trying to create that effect. But my question was, are pubs like that? Like, do pubs have a lot of screens? Because I feel like everything I've seen is more like traditional kind of pub, no TVs, just alcohol and a fun time.
I mean, you've literally been across the road to footage, have you not? It's literally like filled.
Are there a bunch of TVs in there?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so, but I feel like The thing is, the way that it is posed in here particularly, because it's not only about the sports, it's specifically about the interviews, so it's more tailored according to the American sports bar, as we have explained here. But yes, so that was an interesting thing because, spoiler alert, most likely none of the people who are actually going to come and see will not watch these, but just in case you are, the footages played on the screens are literally identical until about 5 to 8 minutes.
4.5 minutes.
4.5 minutes. 4.5 to 8 minutes
from the end
of the end. So, which is when it gets a bit skewed, which is when we get the actual honest interviews displayed. But, I mean, you get the bits and bobs of the honest interviews even before that. So it's kind of like sections, but it's more cohesive after the 4.5 minute mark.
And I think the feeling that you're trying to talk about is that, you know, even though we do have bits of honest answers injected before that, which leads up to this kind of final 4.5 minutes, the difference with the final 4.5 minutes is that instead of feeling like an edited piece, you're going to be getting just 4 femme passing or female identifying or presenting people just talking about their experience, one per screen for a few minutes straight, just their story, completely unedited, no cuts from other people's stories. We're not cutting anything out. That's the different feel that I think Viv is trying to describe, is that like it is just 4 people talking about their experience. We've not dramatized it. We've not added anything or taken anything away or catered it to what we want it to be. You're just getting honesty, which is really what the whole piece is. And that's something that another thing that came up in tech yesterday in our conversation with Rachel is, you know, not in a negative way, but why are certain things the way they are? And for us, it always comes back to the interview, because the interviews are the score for our piece. This is a research piece. While we're performers, we're also researchers. So everything in this space is not influenced by our experience, even though there will be authenticity in our characters and we'll show a bit of us and talk a bit about us. It's really just about the participants. Everything that's in the space, even, you know, in the last episode, we talked a bit about the games, and we're going to get into that more. Everything that we did, all of the detail is, every menu item is completely based on actual quotes, things that people said in the interviews or things they described about their experiences. It's really, it is made by them.
Yeah.
By us, but by them.
It's an interesting juxtaposition, which is something I can't remember if you mentioned it on a podcast or if we had a chat about our piece and you mentioned it, but it's interesting to kind of like have this weird grey area of a non-performer.
Yeah.
And
we have talked about that.
Yeah. So it's really interesting to have that sort of an experience with someone who is you just ask them to answer a few questions and they are the vital heart of the entire piece, to the point that we are actually scoring the entire bit according to, obviously it's like 25 people, but like it's 26.
And because we've already talked about like how the interviews work, where we ask the honest questions and then translate them into sports answers, I would definitely go back in the podcast.
Please
We don't have the time to re-explain it now. It's a lot, but we've talked about this before.
It's podcast number 5 if you do want to go back.
There we go. But we have, not only are we taking real people's interviews, who, I mean, some of them we have done theater with or are performers, but they're generally, like, the point is they're just people in our lives. I think most of them have not done performance in any capacity. They're just people that we know. Viv's old Tinder matches.
It's one person. Oh God. One person.
Anywho, so they are just real people that we've turned into performers, not just by putting them in a performance space in a central role, but by working with them, collaborating to peer generate the material based off of their stories, detail for detail, sometimes word for word. They're taking exactly what they said, but just instead of saying, adding a bit of the sports detail to fit the narrative. So like instead of I was walking home one day and I could tell that a weird guy was following me. For example, I was walking home one day and a fan started screaming my name. I could tell that they recognized me and wanted an autograph.
Or similarly, there was this one interview I did and this person talked about a very, very similar experience to that. It's just kind of like someone following them, and the translation was someone was following them and they didn't know if it was a fan or someone who wanted them
Yeah.
ill. So kind of like it was that ambiguous of like you never know if you're actually like there's this feeling of compromising your safety just to exist.
But that's exactly how we've taken these people and these regular people, if you will, and we've put them in a performer role, not just because they're in the space, but by playing with, this pure generated material that we have, which is very interesting. And again, everything in the space is influenced by them, and that's really the main thing.
Yeah. Going back to the tech thing, where this all derives from, is that it was interesting to kind of like seeing it all comes together and the intense feeling of having the screens, if you remember the original original drawing of the space. We had the screens. I'm just going to insert.
Oh, you know what we could put here? A little picture from the tech request sheet. I made a little diagram of what the space is going to look like. It's labeled and everything. We love an organized queen.
Organized queen. We truly do. So the thing is, you can see now. There's going to be.
I think we should put yours and mine side by side.
Let's not, because you actually like sacrificed time for that. Anyway, so the space is in the way that it's just the screens are facing inwards on opposing walls, which means that is actually a very, very interesting. It feels very surrounding, even though there are literally 2 full walls without screens. It feels very intimate in a way that maybe a lot of sports bars don't feel, but also I feel like that's to our advantage in a way that it's a performance space, not a sports bar at the end of the day. So
and that's also, it's not just based off of, this is another area where research comes in, actually not from our primary source research, but this is something that we explored last time with Home Run Cafe and the idea of, oh my gosh, what was the name? There was the house piece.
Yes,
we'll have to put the name. And
I think it's called Incent.
Like it was. Yes. But essentially, small groups of people were invited to walk around a house, and each room had a different, a storyline going on with a different smell, different experience. And it feels like you're
different
walking.
character.
Yeah, and it feels like you're walking into someone's space and really feeling it. You're smelling it. It's a sensory experience. And something that was found through that piece was that audience members, even if they were strangers and didn't know each other, had a better experience when they went in as a group as opposed to alone. They felt more supported through the experience. Like, at points it could be awkward or strange, and it felt like you had a communal experience. You had someone to share it with, so it's easier to explore.
And it's kind of like this incidental camaraderie that they found in a way that they were both in the space in a way that they didn't quite know what's happening, and they're both like, okay, I've got no clue what's going on. Have you got any clue what's going on? And it's kind of like, and finding solace in that shared emotion in that sense.
And there's potential for that in the way that we've designed our space as well, where not just, it's a sports bar, so we have tables, like people are sitting at a sports bar. So we don't have assigned seats, so when people walk in, if you've come in as a group, we say, go pick your table so you can sit with who you'd like. But, it might happen that we have a single person or a couple, the tables are meant for 3 or 4, so people who don't know each other might end up sitting together if we have a big crowd, and so I think they have the opportunity for that experience as well.
A great leeway. We have games in the space.
Yes,
for these
on the tables, on set tables.
On set tables, we have 3 different games. We have regular playing cards, the classic ones. Then we have an Uno, and we have a Bananagram. And then we also have bingo sheets assigned to all the seats. And we are literally we have the small bingo.
A little bingo wheel, yeah.
It's so cute. I love it.
Yeah. Thank you, Amazon.
Thank you. Pretty much everything we bought to this piece has been from Amazon.
Prime next day delivery.
Literally. Anyway, so that's kind of like we're only... bingo is not a central thing about this piece, but it's just a thing that we will go back to every 2 minutes, every 3 minutes, every once in a while. Yeah. So kind of like this endless game of bingo. But the thing about these, all of these games, every single one of these games has been rigged.
Just like the patriarchy.
So technically what we did with the Bananagrams, I think we took out 2/3 or 3/4.
We took out about 45 of the vowels from each bag, which means we have tested the games ourselves. It was grueling work to play these games for hours and hours. It was really tough, but
just Uno and Bananagrams over and over.
Yeah, with the Bananagrams, removing vowels. With Uno, we removed most of the number cards, so you get a lot of reverse,
yes.
+2, +4.
And it's just literally like and we had 2 decks of playing cards, and we just literally split them half, and just you get like half of the playing cards and the other half.
And we removed a bunch of them too, so
Yes.
neither is even a full half of a deck. So
Exactly.
I think we removed from both decks most of the
Kings.
cards that
All kings are gone.
Yeah,
All kings are gone.
Cards that tend to be very useful for most games. Kings, sevens, the aces are non-existent. One of the decks is mainly 2s and 8s and 4s, I believe. Maybe some jacks in there. But the point, so we did play these games ourselves, and we tried and tested. The point is that you can play the games. So we tested they work this way. You can play games with them. With the card deck, you get to choose how you engage with it, which one's going to play.
Absolutely.
But Uno, Bananagrams, you can physically play the games with each other. And it is possible to win.
There is a slight possibility.
Yes, it's possible to get to the end. But for example, for Bananagrams, like when the rule is, if you have a hand of letter tiles and you can't make any words, if you can't do anything, you have to relinquish your turn to draw a new hand. You will have to do that a lot. So you can physically get through the games if people choose to engage with them, if you want to. You can get through the games, you can play them. With Uno, it is possible to win. It's just the games are rigged so that it is very difficult, and they're probably not as fun to play unless you like a little bit of challenge.
With the Uno, it's just kind of like you can get to one card, which I did several times actually. However, because the other person has literally just pulled half of the deck to their hand, which means that they have several +2s, +4s, reverse and skip and everything, which means that you don't get to play your one card, even if it would fit. It means that you end up drawing a lot of cards again, which means that it's kind of like an endless game of Uno unless you get really, really lucky. So you talked about the Bananagrams and the bingo. The thing about the bingo is that the numbers only go up to 75.
Those are the numbers that are going to be inside of the bingo wheel on the balls. So meaning the numbers that we're calling only go up to 75. It's just the way the bingo set is.
Yeah.
But Viv did a lovely job rigging the bingo cards that the players will have, all of our customers, players, audience members, so that you will have numbers called. It's just like the rest of the games. You can play. But with the bingo, unfortunately, it is impossible to win. It will be a never-ending bingo game. We're never going to finish. We're going to be calling out numbers, and people will be able to check things off of their bingo, but you're never going to be able to get 5 in a row. It's just not going to be possible, the way that the game is,
and
the way the cookie crumbles.
And it's one of those things about the bingo as well. I think the numbers on the cards go up to like 118 or 120. I think 118 is the highest number. But there's going to be always one number above 75 in all the rows, in a way that you will never win the bingo. That is the one game that is absolutely impossible to win.
Yeah, and it'll be a never-ending game too. We're not going to finish before the end of the piece. Whereas, you could, if one of the tables was just having a hoot with the Uno game, you could get through it. It might take a long time, and keep reshuffling the deck, but you could. The bingo game will never end. I think with that, in the 5 or so minutes that we have left in this podcast, we'll move on, because we had kind of 2 different things we wanted to discuss with the games and where we're at with that, describing those, and also just tech, which we've talked a lot about already, is how tech went yesterday. But I think we'll finish this talking about how we're going to move forward with what we're taking away from our tech day and meeting with Rachel.
Yeah.
So I think I'll start by saying the main thing that we got out of that, actually we have very easy changes to make. Basically what we need to do is make this piece easier for ourselves. So we agreed with Rachel in saying that this could be, while it is performative, our characters could be less performative or less fake. They could be more grounded based off of ourselves, and there will still be moments of putting up a mask, a server's smile, but in general, you will be able to see behind the mask a lot, and there will be more of a narrative of what's actually underneath there. And we've talked about the difference between the characters that Viv and I portray, which are based on ourselves, but also based on, they're not us. They're based on elements of ourselves, but they're characters, and they're also taking a lot of influence from things that people said in the interview, in the way that they are, the way that they evolve, the way that they approach reality. So we've talked a bit about, the difference between our 2 characters is that, mine decides, I can't do this anymore. This world is not working for me. I want another one. I don't want to be a part of this. And Viv's character is more naive or more reluctant for change, where she might recognize where things could be better, maybe where she's at a disadvantage, but overall she's fine with things the way that they are, and is more reluctant and just wants to maintain the status quo, wants to maintain things the way that they are, doesn't want to get into the difficulty of change.
Yeah, I feel like overall my character is very afraid of conflict, which I relate. But
but it's based off of things in the interviews where, you know, we had one person who specifically said, like, I think that I'm stupid. Like, I just genuinely don't notice these things. Like feeling like, you know, being
not stupid.
That is what they said. That is what they said, which is why I'm
but
quoting
just
that.
Clarifying.
I'm not suggesting that they are, but it is what they said in the interview, and you'll see it saying, like, I don't know if I'm lucky or if I'm stupid, but I've never noticed these things before. I've never thought about it. Talking about someone who, you know, grew up in a patriarchal system, influenced by male gaze, and that's what you know. And someone who's managed to be very successful, even given all of these things, and given all these factors and disadvantages. And because of that, I've said, like, no, it only made me work harder. And doesn't really recognize ways in which maybe they didn't have to work that hard, and maybe people in the future don't have to work that hard. And that's influence for Viv's character, as well as we had plenty of people in interviews, I know I did, saying that what they always want to do is de-escalate a situation. If someone comes up to them, even if it's very nerve-wracking, it's scary, you know, unwanted attention, they always try to be nice, de-escalate, not cause any sort of conflict. So while Viv's character, like we were just saying, has pieces of her and feels grounded in reality, it is still completely influenced by things that people said. And it's the same thing for mine, where I feel like I'm definitely less conflict avoidant. I'm a New Yorker. But I can absolutely relate to that. I think I used to be that way. But my character definitely has elements of that, feeling that way in the end, but is also influenced by, you know, me being more outspoken and wanting more change and being ready to get in the mud and dig for it, but also influenced by things that people said in the interviews. So it's a bit of me, and it's also a bit of people saying, like, yeah, I don't want to be a part of this. It's fucking weird. Like, sorry to curse, but it's really what people said is, like, this is a mess. I don't want to be a part of this. I want this to change, and I'm willing to do things to make it change.
Yeah, but obviously, like, these are just, like, sections of what we both went through with our journeys with 100%. This, so we wouldn't be making this piece together if I was still in a place of, oh no, I don't want to have a conflict and this sucks.
Something that many people said in interviews too was, like, you know, one of our questions was, you know, how do you think you've been disadvantaged as a woman? What are a femme presenting person? What are disadvantages that you've faced for being a femme presenting person or femme passing? And multiple people said, well, I don't think that being a woman or being femme presenting or identifying or passing is a disadvantage inherently. It's the system that disadvantages me. So that was very interesting to see how people interacted with that question, saying, I recognize the disadvantages that I've faced, but being femme passing, female identifying, that's not the issue. The issue is the way that outside influences treat me and view me because of this one thing. So that's something that's injected in our characters as well. Is for Viv, it's very much, well, that's the way the system just is. So I'm going to fit into it, and I'm going to
have to work harder. And
exactly.
I'm going to have to smile more and be more considerate of other people's emotions. Please don't feel like you need to micromanage other people's emotions.
That's not
It's exhausting.
But Viv's character is based on that side of it, where it's, yeah, this is the way the system is, and I'm going to do my best to master it. And my character is based off of a separate sentiment that people also displayed, which is, I don't want to fit into it. It's wrong. The system is not made for me, and I want to work to correct it, to make a system that does better suit me, which is a generational issue. It will span eons. It is not an immediate change. But because of that, that is also a reason why a lot of things in the piece are purposefully left ambiguous. And that's another thing we're taking away from tech. Not only are we simplifying it, we're simplifying the characters, simplifying the work that we do for the characters, simplifying all of the acting and the masking. We're making it more authentic, and we're shedding a bit of the layers more often throughout the piece.
And that was a word that Rachel also used, authentic. And I feel like that's just kind of like making it less of a performance and more of a slice of this personality, so this is what you get.
Yes,
but this
influenced
is
by not only us, but the interviews mainly and the participants.
And you get the layers of the journey within that personified people that we represent in the space.
But then the thing that we are simplifying and purposefully leaving ambiguous is, some of the conclusions that our characters draw in the end, which previously were voiced with text, as well as like physical movement. Now we're going to simplify the text down to the very, very bare bones, bare minimum. We figured that through the course of the piece, people will come to their own conclusions. They'll also be able to, in ways, see the conclusions that our characters have come to. So we've decided, after talking to Rachel, to not spoon feed it to them, because we definitely don't do that in the rest of the piece. So now we're absolutely simplifying the ending, leaving it more ambiguous, up to interpretation, up to how the audience members individually choose to engage with it. We're not going to be laying out, I don't want to be a part of this system anymore, I don't like this, here's why. It's, you've seen it, you've seen here's why, and yeah, you're going to be able to choose to take away what you will and engage with it how you'd like to. Yes. So that's what we're working on now, is making those edits just to simplify the ending and the spoon feeding that I think we were doing, to leave it more open-ended, to leave it ambiguous, leave it, I think, more engaging, honestly, to give the audience more to think about rather than telling them what to think about.
Yeah, and it's one of those things, at the end of the piece, if you do come and see it, you get an active choice of kind of like, what do you want to engage with?
Yep. And we also lay out that either way is fine, because Viv and I, like we said, our characters are based on two sides of the spectrum. One is, this is what the system is, and I'm going to do my best, and I'm going to show you that I can do it. I'm going to prove I'm going to do the best I can with what I have. And my character is more based off of people expressing sentiments of, but I don't want to be a part of the system. The system is wrong. I'm not going to work harder just to get to the same level that other people are. I don't want to have to do that. And we want to say, like, what we're making clear in the piece is that we're not judging anybody for how they choose to interact with feminism and feminist issues. And, we're talking about male gaze specifically. We are not judging.
There's also a very, very lovely line that Olivia has, that I will never judge you for not wanting change.
Yeah, because, or for not being ready for change. Yeah,
and it's kind of like one of those things, like, it's a journey.
We're not pulling other women down.
No,
we're not pulling you down for change. Change is hard.
Yeah, and it's just one of those things, like, each and every single one of us has this journey with feminism, whether they are aware of it or not. It's just because of the way we are existing in the system. You happen to be the political other, and experiencing that sort of otherness in your daily life, and whether or not you engage
through male gaze, which is the central theme of our piece.
Yes,
how we're experiencing male gaze and being subject to it.
Exactly, and it's kind of like, whether or not you actively engage with that thought pattern that's connected to it, that's up to you. But the way that you are going, if you are a femme-passing or femme-presenting person, you are going to get your share of whatever's going on, and kind of like that's going to be your journey to walk. And our experiences differ to begin with, and
so do all the participants too.
Exactly.
And all the audience members will as well, which is why this piece is interactive in multiple different ways. Everybody's coming in with a different experience. You're going to hear from people with different experiences. You're going to see performers who are expressing different experiences. And in the end, you get to choose what you want to experience. With that, this has been a very long podcast.
Oh, right.
Stay classy, San Diego.
Thank you so much. Okay, see you.
We'll probably just see you for maybe one more, maybe two more before the piece. Oh my God.
Okay, and
bye.
But also, before we do go, and foreshadowing, be nice.